forward to chat and participate here.
Okay. You're all set.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm John Paul. I'm AAA Northeast car doctor. I have been with AAA now for a little bit more than 35 years, and I try to help people with their car problems. I kind of think of myself as an automotive consumer advocate, trying to help people try to make the right decision when it comes to taking care of the car and making sure everything works okay in their car. If you read some of the local websites and newspapers, I write a column every Saturday for the Providence Journal and Boston.com, and out in New York, some papers out there. Same kind of thing, just answer people's car questions. And I've been doing that for a long time. Prior to coming to work at AAA, I worked as an automobile mechanic. I still am an ASE certified technician, so I still keep up with the testing and all of that to try to stay up to date with the latest things. Our program tonight is called Ask the Car Doctor, and it's a little bit about car care and things you can do to try to make sure you keep your car in as good a shape as possible, and where you can get some of the answers to some of the questions that I get asked on a pretty regular basis. I get emails, not so much phone calls these days in COVID, but email on a really regular basis with people thinking about buying a car or selling a car, or they have a car problem, or there's a check engine light on, and I try to kind of work through what would be a logical way to think about getting that car repaired. So I have this presentation. I'm going to share my screen and then do that. And again, we're just kind of calling it car care, Ask the Car Doctor. And you know, one of the questions I get on a very regular basis is, do I really need to change the oil in my car every 3,000 miles? And I kind of put some true or false in here. Back when I started to repair cars, back years and years and years ago, we would change the oil in someone's car every 2,000 or 3,000 miles, and we would see them 4 or 5 times a year for regular routine maintenance. Today, that's not the case. A lot of cars today, you change the oil every 5,000, 6, 7. We have a couple of Volkswagens in our family. It's once a year or every 10,000 miles. It doesn't mean you don't have to check the oil. It still means you still need to check it, because if you're going that long a period of time, even a good running engine can burn some oil. So you can use some oil. So you have to make sure it stays full. So false, you don't need to change your car's oil every 3,000 miles. But with COVID, a lot of people are driving a lot less. So where people are driving 10, 12, 15,000 miles a year, now people are driving 3, 4, or 5,000 miles a year. So the 3,000 mile number might actually, in time wise, maybe a longer time. So keep an eye on both time and date. Typically, you might change the oil in your car every 5,000 miles or every 6 months. If it's been 6 months and you've only been 2,500 miles, still would be a good idea to change the oil. So normally, under normal circumstances, look at the mileage, but also look at time these days too. Is synthetic oil worth the extra money? That's a question I get really often. And here's 2 ads I just kind of pulled out of the internet. One is, you know, an oil change special, $39.99, and the other is synthetic oil for $89.99. So more than twice the cost. And is it worth the money? Synthetic oil provides better lubrication than it has better ability to flow when the weather's really cold. My cars are, one's a couple years old, one's 5 years old, and one's 11 years old. And I use synthetic oil in all of them. I see a benefit of using synthetic oil. I think you get easier starts and the car just tends to perform better. And synthetic oil has been proven to reduce wear and tear in an engine. So if you're somebody who keeps a car a long time, spending extra money for synthetic oil makes some sense. Is all gasoline created equal, true or false? I always used to say false. I I mean, I always used to say true. I always used to say, yeah, the gasoline you buy at Stop and Shop is the same gasoline you buy at the Shell station. Quality wise, they're all the same. It's not really true. There's something called top tier gasoline. If you want to find out more information, it's toptiergas.com. And what it is, it's gasoline that has an additional additive in it that helps keep your engine clean and remove deposits from the inside of the engine. So when I can, I'll try to use top tier gasoline. And it's usually major brands like Citgo and Shell and Mobil, but not always. And it just helps the engine be cleaner internally. So you get better performance out of the engine. You won't get better gas mileage, but you might get better. The car may just run better because of it, because gasoline that isn't top tier gasoline can build up carbon. The carbon can cause the engine to run poorly. So when you can use top tier gasoline, it actually has a beneficial effect, even if you haven't used it for a while. How often should my car's tires be rotated? 5,000, 7,000, 10,000, 20,000 miles? In the owner's manual on my car, it says to rotate the tires every 7,500 miles. I tend to be a little bit lazy. I don't do it quite as often. But I do check the tires to make sure they're wearing evenly. And although you might not want to, you might rotate your tires on your car. So that just means taking them from the front and putting them in the back, and taking them from the back and putting them in the front. It helps even out the wear. I just kind of check them and see that they're doing okay. If they're doing okay, I just leave them alone. But the good thing about rotating your tires, it's a good excuse when they take the tires off, they can check the brakes and see how the brakes are doing. I get a lot of questions about engine coolant or antifreeze. How long does it last? Does it last forever? Is it permanent? Can it stay in my car for a really long time? Way back when I used to work in a garage, we'd change people's engine coolant every year, sometimes every other year. The picture on the left says it's permanent antifreeze. That's not really true. That was a statement that was used back in the old days, because before there was the chemicals that are used in antifreeze today, it was mostly all alcohol, and the alcohol would evaporate. So permanent antifreeze, sometimes called engine coolant, lasts for the life of the car. No, it doesn't. It does need to be changed periodically. So it might be 4 years, 5 years, maybe even 10 years in some cars, but it does need to be checked. And especially this time of year where the weather's changing and starting to get colder out, antifreeze lubricates some of the internal parts of the engine, but it also prevents the engine from freezing. So properly mixed antifreeze that's mixed 50-50, half antifreeze, half water, will protect the engine to minus 34 degrees. So we're never going to see temperatures that cold, but if you, for some reason, the coolant isn't to that protection, your car can actually freeze. And this is kind of where it gets weird. The radiator can freeze and the car will overheat. So they'd be like, it's 5 degrees out. How can the car overheat? Because the coolant actually builds up a block of ice and it can't flow through the engine, and it causes the engine to run hot. This is something I get usually right around now, right through the end of the holidays. If I add an aftermarket remote car starter to my car, will it void the warranty? So you might have somebody who, gets you a remote car starter for Christmas, and you go and you have somebody, you might hear somebody say, oh, if it didn't come from the factory, it's going to void the warranty. That is absolutely not true. As long as it's installed properly, it will never void the warranty. One of my coworkers was out car shopping, and she wanted a remote car starter in her Honda CRV. And we were at the dealership together, and I was just kind of listening. And she asked about a remote car starter, and they gave her a price, and it was kind of expensive. It was $500 or $600. And she said, "Oh, I think I can get it cheaper somewhere near my house." And they said, "Oh, if you add that remote car starter, it's going to void the warranty." And afterwards, I was talking to her, and I said, get what you want to get. It won't void the warranty. And probably a month or two later, I was at an auto stereo store right near the same Honda dealership. And I said to them, I was telling the story about the salesperson, and he said, "Here's the funny part. He said, we do all of their installations for them. So they said, if you go to that store down the street, it'll void your warranty, but yet they put all our remote car starters in. So there's something called the Magnuson-Moss law that protects consumers. And basically what it says is if you put something into your car that's installed properly and it voids, and they claim it will void the warranty, they have to put it in for free. So the Magnuson-Moss law protects you as a consumer. Does my car have a timing belt or a timing chain? And if it does, when do I need to replace it? Well, typically, if it has a timing belt, and a lot of cars manufactured from the 80s right up through today, although not quite as many, had rubber timing belts. The rubber timing belt would fail, and depending on the engine, when it broke, it could do some really catastrophic damage. The picture on the right is a old worn timing belt. You can see in the middle, it's all frayed looking. That's one step away from breaking and doing catastrophic damage. The picture on the left, rubber timing belt around a gear, metal timing chain around a gear. Timing chains typically last a very long time. Timing belts usually get replaced every 60, 80, 90, maybe 105,000 miles, somewhere in that range. You'll find out that information from your vehicle's owner's manual. Can you do some things yourself and save yourself some money? Absolutely. You can check your engine oil. That's easy to do. Engine oil dipstick, usually it's pretty well marked. It'll say oil on it. When the engine is warm, but not hot and not cold, you find the dipstick, pull it out, wipe off any oil off of it, put it back in, take it back out, look at the reading, and there might be 2 marks, or it might say safe, but if it's below the bottom mark, it's time to add oil. If it's near the top or in a safe range, if it's marked safe, you don't have to do anything. Checking engine coolant is almost as simple. There's usually a coolant tank. It looks like the picture in the middle. And this one makes it really easy. You can just see it, and it says minimum and maximum. So as long as it's between those 2 lines, it's fine. Brake fluid, again, it's a translucent reservoir. You can kind of see there's a line of brake fluid right there, and as long as it's sort of at the normal mark, it's fine. Checking tire pressure in your tires is so critical. A simple tire gauge will really make life easier. There's a placard on the door of the car. They'll tell you how much air to put in the tires. Tire pressure should be checked when the tires are cool. Doesn't have to be cold, but it shouldn't be after you just drove off the highway. They should be checked when the tires are cool. And again, a simple tire gauge, really easy to do. Unscrew the valve cap, hold the tire gauge down over the valve. The little end of the tire gauge will pop up, and then you'll know how much air is in your tire. Checking tire tread is almost as simple. We have a picture of a tire in the middle with a penny and a quarter. If the tread comes up to the edge of Lincoln's head, the tire's worn out. If the tread comes up to the edge of Washington's head, the tire's almost worn out. So you need to have minimally, you want to take a quarter, stick it in the tread, and measure across the tire, and the tread should be at least to the top of Washington's head. At AAA, we like to say replace tires when they get to 4/32 of tread. That would be the distance between the top of the tread and Washington's head. Many commercial vans, especially those used for small school buses, if the tires are worn less than 4/32, they get rejection stickers and they need to be replaced. There are all kinds of filters in your car, but the engine air filter is what this one is, the picture on the right. So there's a dirty air filter and a clean one. I had someone email me about a month or so ago, and she went into the car dealership and they told her she needed a engine air filter and a cabin air filter. The engine air filter, I think they said was going to be about $60, and the cabin air filter was going to be a little bit more. I think it was going to be 65 or 70. Well, she said, is that something I need to do? And I said, well, if they're dirty, you need to do it. She said, and in her email, she wanted to know if it was something she could do herself. And it was, as I recall, it was a Toyota Highlander. And I sent her directions how to do it. And she went to her local auto parts store and she replaced the engine air filter. It was just held in with a couple of clips, just like this one. So you pop open this cover, take the filter out, put the new one in, you're good. And the engine and the cabin air filter, the one that keeps the air inside the car clean, a little bit more complicated, but not bad. You open up the glove compartment, take all your stuff out, pop open, there's a little clips that hold the glove compartment from opening up all the way. You let the door open up all the way. Behind it, there was a panel that said filter. You pull out these other little clips, the filter comes out, you put the new one in. She did it. She said it took her about an hour to do both of them. And she said the parts cost her about $45. So she said, I saved her what amounted to about $100 by doing a little bit of do-it-yourself. Washing and waxing your car protects the investment of your car. Whenever you can, the best thing to do is always hand wash your car, because you're going to be paying a little bit more attention. You're going to get a little bit cleaner. So it just makes, it also lets you, if you see little dents and dings and scratches, it's a good opportunity to try to either clean those up or even touch them up with some touch-up paint. Waxing a car. Waxing a car protects the paint finish. It also makes it easier to clean if there's a good coat of wax on it. You should wax your car 2 or 3 times a year as a minimum. The good thing about waxing a car, if you're out there washing and waxing your car, you burn about 1,200 calories. So it's exercise at the same time. Types of wax is all different kinds. There's spray-on wax, which I use when I'm in a lazy mood. I'll just wash the car, wipe it down, then I'll take the spray wax, spray it on, wipe it off with a nice clean chamois. And if I'm a little bit more ambitious, I'll use a liquid wax. And if I'm really ambitious, I'll use like a paste wax. The difference between them, the paste wax tends to be the strongest or the longest lasting. It's also the hardest work. So spray on wax when you're a little bit lazy, liquid wax when you're not quite as lazy. But it's important to keep, the car is probably going to be the 3rd biggest investment you're going to buy. Your house is the most, kids' tuition 2nd, and your car is 3rd. So why not try to protect the investment? Question I get pretty often: will road salt really ruin my car? Yep, that's a good example of it. That's why it's important. If we're getting bad weather, a couple things happen. In Massachusetts and Rhode Island, especially, we tend to pre-treat the roads, and we put a brine down on the road. If you've ever been driving down the highway when it isn't snowing and you notice kind of like white lines in the road, that's this kind of brine stuff they put down. And it's really good because when it snows, it lowers the freezing temperature of the snow. So in other words, where water will freeze at 32 degrees, the brine causes it not to freeze till it gets much colder than that, maybe closer to 10 degrees. So the roads tend to be wet, but they don't tend to be icy. So it's good for the roads, but there's brine, and it can be, salt is, my high school chemistry says sodium chloride. Then they use magnesium chloride or calcium chloride. And then they've been using magnesium chloride. The funniest ones I've seen, though, is sort of a pickle juice brine, which from pickle companies, I guess. Some byproduct from making beer, and which is also the alcohol in it keeps the snow from freezing up. And sort of a molasses-based product, which is sticky and gooey and gets all over your car. But as good as it is, and it's great, it keeps the road safe, it's bad for your car. So if you're driving home in a snowstorm and you've noticed that the roads seem clear and the side doesn't, they probably pre-treated the roads. When the weather gets a little bit better over the next day or 2, get out there and wash the car, bring it to a car wash where maybe you can do it yourself, or bring it to a car wash where you can, has an undercarriage wash, and you can wash all of the salt off the car. And that will help preserve the car and not take your nice car and turn it into something that looks like this. Can I upgrade the headlights in my car? Can I improve headlight performance? The light on the left is a conventional headlight. The one on the right is a LED replacement headlight. The problem with these is the one on the left is the factory light. The one on the right is one someone bought from the internet. The one on the right, although it's brighter and it's whiter, it's not legal. It's not for on-road use. And it probably said that right on the package, not for on-road use, even though it might say Department of Transportation or something, they're not legal. So my suggestion is use the stock headlights that the car came with, or you can go to a slightly brighter headlights that's legal. There's a couple different manufacturers locally in New England. There's a company called Sylvania Orstrom. They make all kinds of lights, but they also make lights for your car. They have slightly brighter bulbs called Silver Star and Silver Star Plus. They do a really nice job of lighting the road. The downside is they don't last very long. Where a regular headlight might last 4 or 5 years, the performance headlights might only last a couple. And the other thing about headlights is they tend to degrade over time. So you turn your lights on when the car is brand new and they seem bright, and 4 years later they don't seem as bright, but you get out and you look and you're like, they're all working. Well, because they're slowly degrading. So depending when you're watching this, a new set of headlight bulbs for Christmas is a good gift. Put them in someone's stocking. They get better light out of the car and they'll be able to see what they're going. The best place for car advice, me, the car doctor, I'm okay. Everybody's got an Uncle Frank or an Uncle Frank in the neighborhood where there's this guy who knows everything. He's pretty good too. But the best advice you can get about getting your car repaired is right from the vehicle's owner's manual. That's where you're going to learn all the things that you need to do to your car, and also the things you don't. Sometimes what happens is when you go into a car dealership or a garage and they might say, oh, you need to do this, 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 and this. And you're like, do I really? And then you look in your owner's manual and find out those are not things that need to be done. Maybe they're nice to be done, but they don't need to be done. So your owner's manual is where you're going to learn those kind of things. And I've had some people call me about different things. I'll say, well, show it to me in the owner's manual. Show me where it says that you need to have your fuel injection system cleaned, or you need to have your power steering flushed out. Never says that in the owner's manual. In fact, some manufacturers recommend against those kind of things, and it will say that in the owner's manual. I always like to say that and I don't go to junkyards very often anymore, but I always used to like to say when I went to a junkyard, the owner's manual is the best looking part in the junkyard because no one ever looks at it. It's the probably most published, least read book ever. I was talking to someone today. Now he owns a garage, and he just bought a fancy car, and he said there was 3 owner's manuals with the car because there was so much technology in the car, and he wanted to review it all. I said, you're probably the only one in the life of that car that will ever look at the owner's manual. So that's a little presentation I have. If you have questions and you want to get a hold of me, the easiest way is send me an email, especially in these times. My email is jpaul@aaanortheast.com, or even easier, just go to AAA.com/car-doctor, and I will be happy to answer your car questions or any kind of question about your car. So that is sort of my talk. If people have questions, now maybe it's about, I'm thinking about buying a hybrid and I want to know what you think about it, or I'm thinking about buying an electric car like a Tesla or a Chevrolet Bolt. You can ask. I drive, over the course of a year, I drive about 50 different vehicles, and I try to drive them as real to life as possible. So in other words, I take it to the store and I take it to work and I take it to go do errands and I take it on a joyride. And I'll try to give you my best advice based on what I've driven. And I've been doing this for 25 years now, so I can give you a little bit of history. And also, maybe you have a question about, I'm thinking about buying a Honda or a Subaru. Is one better than the other? Is one going to perform better than the other? Does one have a better retail value? What's your favorite mid-sized SUV? And, I can at least give you an opinion what I think. By the way, it's the new Kia, which is a great mid-sized SUV. The Kia Telluride is a fantastic 3-seat SUV. It has $60,000 worth of technology in it for about $42,000, which is still a lot of money. But still, if you're looking for a very competitive SUV with a really good warranty, that's one to certainly look at. Even if you're looking at, say you said, my kids eventually going back to school, but I want to put them in a car, but I like to put them in a new car with a warranty. What's the cheapest car I can buy? The cheapest car in America right now is the Mitsubishi Mirage. It's a little tiny car. It sells for about $13,000, which for a brand new car with a 100,000-mile warranty, 10-year, 100,000-mile engine warranty, that gets about 50 miles per gallon is pretty impressive. And there was a story I read recently of a guy who has a package delivery company, and him and his wife put 450,000 miles on this car in 3.5 years. So if he can put 450,000 miles on his car, I think your kid can probably take it back and forth to school and have something that's fairly dependable and has a good warranty. So anyway, those are the kind of questions I get. Again, feel free to email me your questions at jpaul@aaanortheast.com or AAA.com/cardoctor. And I tend to try to answer questions as soon as I see them pop up, either on my phone or my computer. I'm a little slow on Sundays, but the rest of the week I usually try to answer people's questions as quickly as I can. So that's my presentation for today. And the best advice I can offer you, though, is make sure you wear your seatbelt and drive safely, and wear a mask and use hand sanitizer. Well, thanks for having me.
Can I ask a couple of questions while you're here?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Only
if you tell me your dog's name.
Oh, this is Zoe.
Oh,
She's on my lap because she's a problem. She likes
She doesn't look like a problem to me.
Oh no, she's wonderful, but she needs all the attention.
Yeah, that's going to be everybody's challenge when they eventually go back to work.
Oh, yeah.
Their pets are going to be so lonely.
Yeah, she's a handful. My little guy's on the floor.
Oh, okay. Well, at least they'll have each other.
Yeah, no, they're good. Yeah. But she likes to talk during these things.
Oh, okay. Well, Zoe's been very quiet. Well, thank you, Zoe.
Yeah, she tries.
All right. So you had a couple questions.
Yeah, you were talking about the least expensive car. In your opinion, what's the safest car for a new driver? I have a 15-year-old.
Something they won't get in trouble with. So it's going to be something they hate. So especially if you think about buying a used car, it's going to be like a Toyota Camry or a Honda Accord, or it's not going to be a Jeep, and it's not going to be a Mustang, and it's not going to be a Camaro. It's not going to be a Honda Civic Si. It's going to be a pretty basic 4-door family car, and they're going to be the ones with the most airbags and the most seatbelts. If you have a real concern about bad weather, something like a Subaru, because it's all-wheel drive, gives you that little bit of extra traction in the bad weather, which makes it better. The downside of 4-wheel or all-wheel drive is sometimes it inspires a little too much confidence with new drivers. Sometimes slipping and sliding is a little bit better because it makes you think about, well, maybe I shouldn't do that. Are you thinking about buying a used car?
Probably not. I would think she would inherit or be allowed to use one of our older cars.
Okay. All right.
It just got me thinking,
Yep.
Subaru is probably, we have a Subaru.
Okay. And that would be a good choice because they're solid cars and they have all-wheel drive, and they're just for being out in wet and slippery weather, it's a great choice, but also they're pretty dependable too.
Now it almost leads to my next question. We're also driving into the ground a PT Cruiser, which they don't make anymore.
They do not.
So for those cars like a Pontiac or a PT Cruiser that are no longer made, what is the lifespan of being able to get parts, or how?
Parts are pretty easy. because most everything in the car is available in the aftermarket. The PT Cruiser wasn't super popular, but there was an awful lot of it. And they were used a lot in rental car fleet. So a lot of them came out of rental car fleets and ended up kind of in, people's hands as used cars. So it's not that difficult. What happens is one of the kind of challenges with that car is that, what year is yours?
Mine's a 2005.
Okay, so you have the year where it's a little bit of a challenge because that was right when Mercedes bought Chrysler.
Chrysler, okay.
And in some cases, that was the best thing that ever happened. But in other cases, the technology got a little confusing. So sometimes you'll go to buy a part and the parts store will say, this is what you need. And then you get it and it doesn't fit because the manuals and stuff got a little bit confusing in there. So, but as far as there's these giant online auto parts companies now, like Rock Auto and Anything Auto and Car ID, where pretty much you can get almost any mechanical part, and even body parts are pretty, pretty available. It's going to be weird stuff that you might run into once in a while that, I'm trying to think what would be something, maybe some weird hose or brake line that isn't available from the manufacturer anymore. But usually with a little bit of cleverness, you can usually make something that will work. So one of the big issues potentially with your car, though, it has an engine timing belt. And I don't know if you've ever replaced it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, and it's wicked painful to do, first off, because I don't know who designed this and thought it was a good idea. And it usually gets replaced around 90,000 miles or so.
You're above that, so.
You're above that. So
Oh,
you might be on borrowed time with it. And when it breaks, bad things can happen. So driving it into the ground, replacing the timer belt could be $800 or $900. Not replacing it could be the time where you call somebody to come and get your car and because it's broken and it's never going to get fixed. So you might kind of keep an eye on that just to see. There's a cover that you can kind of pull off and take a peek and see how it's doing. But the last I remember looking, it's been a while, I want to say it was almost like a day's worth of labor to replace the timing belt. And they had timing belts in most of their engines. And so that's, round numbers say $100 an hour. So there's $800 just for labor. And by the time you're done with parts and stuff, it's another $1,200 or $1,300. So it could get really kind of pricey. So that might be, something that, that you can kind of keep in the back of your mind. They're actually pretty dependable cars. That's kind of the funny thing about, people think about them and they're like, they just they sort of fit, and I'm trying to look something up at the same time. They sort of fit a lot of criteria as far as, can I use it as a car? Can I fold the seats down and use it as a truck? They're actually pretty practical. So so a lot of people like them for just that reason. There was a couple engine choices, either a turbocharged engine or a regular engine, and they both actually used timing belts. And like I said, they are something that you do need to replace periodically. And just to give you an idea,
I drove that in the big snowstorm in when the school bus got stuck in Providence for hours.
Yep.
And I was amazed at how good it was in that.
Oh yeah, no, they're actually, one of the downsides of the PT Cruiser is it doesn't get very great gas mileage. And it
Yeah.
doesn't get great gas mileage because it's heavy. And
Yeah.
it's that heaviness that actually, we actually had a '05 or '06 PT Cruiser convertible.
That's the
And
one I have the
oh,
convertible
yeah,
too.
you have that, yeah. And it was always a fun little car, and until it got run into, and then it wasn't a fun little car.
No.
But yeah, to do the timing belt on that car is 7, 8, yeah, it's 8 hours labor, and parts are probably going to be in the couple $100 range. So kind of keep in mind, that as a potential issue as far as things that you might have to do with that car, and and that is something that you do. That's a require. That's a actually that one in that year you can go all the way up to over 110,000 miles. So depending on how many miles you have on it, you might be able to squeak a little bit more time out of it. So yeah.
I think we're at like 160 something.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So you've driven a
So
lot.
yeah.
Yeah. Unless you probably would have remembered replacing it because you probably would have said that was a big check already.
Yeah, I don't have a good memory, but I've written some big checks, so I'll have to
Okay.
look back.
So if it was replaced at 120 or 130,000 miles, you should be fine.
We should be fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So
good to know.
maybe if you go to the same mechanic all the time, maybe check with them and see if they have any records of when they
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Anything else?
You mentioned Volkswagens. How are you feeling about the newest ones? And I'm a Volkswagen person too, but I got really miffed after their scandal.
Their Dieselgate?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a shame because the diesels were actually so much fun to drive because they would get 50 miles per gallon and they scooted right along real nice. And my absolute favorite car was the Golf Sport Wagon, the little station wagon with a 5-speed manual transmission and a diesel engine. It was just a ton of fun to drive.
Yeah.
And when we replaced the PT Cruiser, we replaced it with a Volkswagen Beetle. And because that was about the only convertible that kind of made sense. And quality-wise, Volkswagen isn't at the level of Toyota and Honda and Subaru. They're okay, but functionally, I don't think anybody makes a car with a nicer interior in sort of the price category of a Golf or a Jetta. I don't think anybody makes a car that rides as solid feeling. As far as reliability, they're the middle going down. So they're sort of not they're not at the top of the list at any means. Right now the top performers are Mazda, Toyota, Honda, surprise to me, Buick, which I found is kind of a surprise, but and Subaru's probably in the top 10. Volkswagen is not. But we have two of them. We have a 09 and we have a 15, and the 09 I bought just to replace the 15 someplace else now. So we just kind of bought the old one just for a spare car, and they've been okay. I mean, there's stuff that happens, and Volkswagen doesn't always make life easier when it comes to repairing things, but typically they're again, as far as solid feel, right now, because of everything bad that Volkswagen did, people are sort of benefiting at the same time. A lot of these electric vehicle charging stations are all because of Volkswagen money, because of fine money. They had to do things to try to help the environment. So because of all that stuff, it's actually been a benefit. I'm really interested to see the new Volkswagen microbus that's going to be electric. It's pretty cool. Volkswagen, like everybody else, is on the SUV craze. So Tiguan or Atlas or Touareg. The Atlas is a real solid feeling car. they're just not selling them because Volkswagen just does a terrible job of trying to tell everybody about their product. Because I think at this point they're may not be able to. So, but I think as far as overall, yeah, I talked to very anecdotally talked to an engineer from that used to work at Volkswagen, and I said, is this a fact of they outright lied, or is it because they couldn't make it work the way it was supposed to, and they couldn't go to their boss and go, hey, look, we got to spend more time. And he said, absolutely. He said, you don't, when you work as an engineer for Volkswagen, you can't fail. So they cheated. And, and it was one of those things that I'm not as bad. I don't know that it was as bad as the media played it out to be, but it wasn't a good thing to do. And for us as a kind of transportation using people to switch from kind of semi-dirty diesels to super clean electric cars as the technology develops, it's going to be a benefit to everybody. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of okay with it at that too, I guess. So yeah.
that's good to know.
And who knows? And nothing like putting the top down on a snowy day and going for a ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So if people want to get a hold of me, AAA.com/car doctor.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Thanks for
you
the time.
so much.
All right. All right.
Have a great holiday and Happy New Year. And
You as well. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
thank you. Bye, John.
Bye-bye.